Hi everyone, this is Zach Weiss from Worn and Wound, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Omega X Swatch Bioceramic MoonSwatch Speedmaster Mission to Jupiter. If you like this review or you find it entertaining, please like and subscribe below. At the end of March 2022, Omega and Swatch did the unthinkable, which was to launch a watch together, a series of watches, actually the one you're looking at right now, the Bioceramic MoonSwatch Speedmasters. If you had told me that this was something that could have happened or was going to happen, I simply would not have believed you. The idea of a $260 Speedmaster just seems impossible, still sort of seems impossible, and I'm holding one right here in my hands, and it's an incredible launch. I think it's an incredible release. There's been a lot of emotions around it, a lot of different opinions. Is it good? Is it bad? It's great. Like, let's just call it what it is. This is a $260 Speedmaster. Lots and lots of people can get them. They can wear an Omega now on their wrist. It pays a ton of respect to the iconic watch while taking nothing away from it, in my opinion. But, you know, I think this is one of those instances where you just have to enjoy it for what it is, and it is a $260 Bioceramic Speedmaster with a quartz chronograph movement in it, and that is very cool. Needless to say, people were very excited when it came out. A little bit too excited, and the launch was unfortunately a little rough. That's not news anymore. The watches went really fast. The demand was way higher than I think anybody, particularly clearly at Omega and Swatch, could have anticipated. They have a real hit here because it's not just a watch that collectors are interested in, but rather a watch that, you know, culture en masse are interested in. The Speedmaster is one of the few watches with a story that kind of breaks out of watch collector circles, and clearly the idea of an affordable model of this is something that resonated far beyond our little watch enthusiast circle. So they are hard to get. They are becoming available more and more. They seem to be trickling in. I don't know anything about the plans for that. And they are available secondhand. There was a lot of people who bought them the first day and have been flipping them on, you know, the websites you'd assume you'd find them on. Some prices are outrageous, some are not. I'll get more into that later. This is not one that I bought in person. I did buy this secondhand because I did want to make this review sometime while the watch was still relevant. But we can get to that later. So with all of that happened, it's a month ago now. The dust has settled. I want to actually look at this watch. You know, this is a very cool watch, and like any other watch, I'm just going to review it like it's what it is, which is a cool $260 quartz chronograph that just happens to be by two of the biggest household watch brand names with one of the most significant watch brand names on the dial. So when you're talking about Speedmaster, I think one of the most significant aspects of it is, of course, the case design. It is an extremely distinctive case. It's iconic. It's sort of a signature of the watch, even though there's actually been lots of different variations on that case over the years. But the Speedmaster Professional, which is sort of the standard of the Speedy, if you will, the watch that went to the moon, of course, that case is very well known and has a very distinctive shape, and they didn't half-ass it here. They recreated that case out of bioceramic. So you have all the look, you have all the curves, but the material itself is probably the first thing to talk about. Speedmasters have been made in everything from titanium to steel to platinum and gold and traditional ceramic, which is zirconium dioxide. But this is the first bioceramic. And what is bioceramic? So that is a Swatch proprietary material that is 1/3 bioplastic and 2/3 ceramic. It's an interesting material that I honestly don't 100% know all the properties of, but it's based, the bioplastic portion of it is based on castor oil. So it has this organic compound to it. And then the ceramic aspect of it is still zirconium dioxide. So in mixing them together, they're clearly able to make a material that does what they need it to, which is to say sort of acts like plastic, but perhaps has some of the properties of ceramic as well. I think one of the advantages is clearly that it is less expensive to use than ceramic, which can be obviously very expensive. Most fully ceramic watches are 4 to 5 figures, which makes me think that this is moldable and not necessarily has to go through the same processes that traditional ceramic does. I am unaware if it has the same brittle qualities or the same hardness. Ceramic is known for being very hard, though in my experience so far with the watch, it has not gotten damaged or anything like that. One of the great benefits of it, and ceramic in general, frankly, is that it can be colored in interesting ways. Ceramic, however, runs into some issues with color in the firing process. So traditional ceramics are always kind of fired at high temperatures. That can burn off pigments. So the challenge of getting a lot of colors and unique colors is kind of like that's the challenge of ceramic. So when you see red, for example, ceramic, that's actually something that was only recently able to be made. Brands like Hublot, have some really wild colors going for them, IWC as well. And that's really like a signature of the brand, like having those colors. So with the bioceramic, they're clearly able to color this more like they would plastics, which allows for a wide range of colors. Over the 11 watches, you have 11 different colors from what I can tell, ranging from very vibrant colors, such as the Mission to Mars, which, yes, we also happen to have in the office here, which is just a beautiful, rich cherry red color. Absolutely vibrant and incredible. There's the Mission to Neptune, which is a vivid blue. There's the Mission to Uranus, which is like a light pale blue, also absolutely gorgeous. And then you have the Mission to Jupiter, which is my personal favorite, though it's perhaps the most muted of the kind of colorful options. So this is a khaki sort of sand tone, very earthy. It's a color that I've seen on other watches or similar to, such as Marathon Navigators have coyote tan. And of course, then there's ceramic options such as the IWC Mojaves, which are also in a similar sort of tonality. But here it is, $260 and on a Speedmaster. And that is what is exceptionally cool. Once again, if you had told me there would be a ceramic or a khaki colored Speedmaster, I would have just said, ha ha ha, how much is that going to be? I'm not going to be able to get it. But here it is in my hand. So other than the color though, like I said, the case is Speedmaster Professional through and through. So you have the classic 42 millimeter case, which is 42 millimeters in diameter, 47.2 millimeters lug to lug, 13.2 millimeters, including the domed crystal here. I have not confirmed if that crystal is in fact acrylic or if it is another plastic, but it certainly has the look of a classic Speedmaster crystal. Every dimension, every detail is exactly as you want it to be, from the way the bezel has this cool undercut to it, to the curvature of the case here, obviously the Lear lug, the twisted lug that is kind of iconic, the eagle's beak shape on the end. It's all there. You miss out on absolutely none of it. And it also wears like a 42 millimeter Speedmaster, which is, in my opinion, the best wearing 42 millimeter watch probably ever made. It's a very deceptive number because the case is asymmetrical and it measures the entire case. So the reality is it wears more like a 39.8 millimeter-ish watch, because that's the edge of the bezel here. And when you're looking down at the watch, that's frankly the more dominant sort of edge that you see. So 42 millimeters, if you're unfamiliar with a Speedmaster, don't necessarily go off that number. It wears a lot more compact and a lot more comfortable. And then the lug to lug at 47.2 is totally comfortable, at least on my 7-inch wrist, and we'll show you it on my wrist later. But yeah, the details are fantastic. In terms of the finish, they went for a kind of a clean satin finish overall. With plastics, I think there's some complexity with finishing it. It's usually you finish the inside of the mold, and that's how you get the kind of finish when you come off out of the mold. Polish on plastic can look kind of cheap. That's something I've certainly seen before, so I wonder if that's why they shied away from polishing the insides of the twisted lugs here. And then brushing is something, I'm not sure if that would even translate very well. Once again, it could look just not the same quality that you would find on metal or even, full ceramics. So the satin finish, I think, gets the job done. It looks pretty good in my eyes, though it does take a little getting used to if you're used to that kind of contrast that you find from the polished and brushed surfaces on a classic Speedmaster. Flipping the watch over, the case back is also a departure from the classic Speedmaster, but I think they did a really wonderful job here in creating something kind of fun and unique. Here you'll find Swatch dead center here, some details on the movement, some words around the edge. It says, dream big, fly higher, explore the universe, reach for the planets, enjoy the mission. around the edge here. It's just a very nice sentiment, certainly. And then at the top here, you'll find Jupiter itself, and that's actually the battery hatch. Considering how many case backs out there have just barely been adorned or just have little more than branding, I really love the attention to detail here. I think it's the kind of thing that just, adds, frankly, another special layer to this. And, frankly, Speedmaster casebacks are always pretty decent, so I'm glad that they kind of kept that trend going here, even though they're doing it at a much lower price point. If the case of the bioceramic MoonSwatch Speedmaster is very close in size and proportion, etc., to the Speedy Pro, the dial is a little bit more of a departure, though it's very much based on the same language that you'd find on a traditional Speedmaster. Obviously here, though, the biggest difference you'll see is once again the color. So for the mission to Jupiter, it's tone on tone. The whole thing is this sort of muted sand color, which creates quite a striking look, quite a departure from the norm. I would have expected almost a black dial, but once again, there's like nothing expected here on these watches. The entire thing is just so unique and different. So in being tone on tone, though, the dial, the colors aren't quite identical either. So the surface here, it's a little bit paler to my eyes. It's almost a little bit creamier than the case color, so there's a tiny bit of a contrast there, and that's even more so on the tachometer bezel here, which you can probably see is more of a light, almost like oatmeal color versus like a dark sandy color. Other than that, though, you'll find sort of the markings that you would expect to find. So on the outer edge of the dial, you have thin black lines for the individual seconds and minutes, then 1/3 second marks between them just along the outer edge. The chronograph here does not actually tick at 1/3 second, so that is more of a suggestion of the original. That said, I'll give it a pass because I think it looks good, and there actually is a 1/10 second sub-dial here, so it is counting more fine than second anyway, but it is purely aesthetic on the outer edge. Then you have the Loomed Print here, once again, classic Speedmaster style. You have rectangles, simple and bold, with the rectangle at 12 being flanked by 2 small dots. Biggest difference here is that some of those rectangles at 2, 6, and 10 have been truncated to allow for the subdials to fit in there. Moving in is then a curious detail, one that I'm still not 100% sold on, and that is this black line. So this is a reference to the line where there would be a step in the Speedmaster dial. The Speedmasters, pre 1968-69 had step dials, and then the most recent models have step dials as well. There might have been a few other in there for special instances, but for a long time the Speedmaster dial had more of a kind of a soft dome shape. The step dial, however, is it's a very cool detail, particularly on the modern watches, and it creates this sort of visual break in the dial. Because on a Speedmaster Pro it's a physical break, you see it as light and shadow, and it's a lot more subtle than what you see here. So this is just a dense black line, and there is actually no change in depth there. It's a little distracting, though at the same time it does break up the dial between the outer ring and the inner subdial section, so it sort of organizes it visually. That said, I feel like I wish it was a more subtle color perhaps, or a lighter line weight, or ideally would have actually been a physical step. Moving in now to the center of the dial, there's quite a lot going on. So there's the branding, obviously, and then the 3 subdials. I'll get to the branding later. So for the 3 subdials, you have a 1/10 of a second chronograph dial at 2. You have active seconds at 6, and then you have a 60-minute counter up at 10. They're all pressed in, and you have a flat surface followed by a thin chamfer. The typeface here is classic Speedmaster, and it all just has black lines. So it's very simple, very kind of legible. But I have one really big issue here, and this is probably my biggest issue with the watch entirely. The 60-minute counter is lacking individual minutes. That is just incredibly frustrating to me. I think there's a lot of usability in this watch, a lot of functionality, and it's certainly in the spirit of Speedmaster, a watch that was used by NASA to go to the moon, to be very functional. Having a 60-minute counter is unto itself a great detail. I much prefer that to a 30-minute counter. However, when you're looking at this and you stop it at some random interval of a minute, it's kind of impossible to tell what the minute is unless you land right on a mark. I know why they did it, or why I expect they did it, which is for visual balance on the dial. Had they had all those individual marks, that one circle would have been a lot denser than the other subdials. But here, I think they sacrificed function for form and at the detriment to the watch. Looking now at the branding, this is a watch where, you know, you could write an essay just about the branding, and I practically do in my review, but you have quite a lot going on here, and everything is significant. At 12, you have Omega X Swatch. One thing I find really interesting here is that Omega is the first name, but it's also the much larger branding. When you look at this watch, it looks more like an Omega than a Swatch. It is, however, sold by Swatch and made by Swatch, so I think that's a really interesting choice there, but it is the Omega Speedmaster. Kind of gets confusing. Then down on the sides, you have Speedmaster on the left side and MoonSwatch on the right side. Once again, there's a little bit of naming branding confusion here. It's like, what do I call this watch? The Bioceramic MoonSwatch Speedmaster, the Speedmaster MoonSwatch. You know, kind of call it what you want in the end. I don't know what they want you to call it, but I'll call it what I want in the end. But I love the fact that it says Speedmaster on the dial. I think it's a little bit almost shocking that it says Speedmaster on the dial, but shocking in the best way possible. This is a Speedmaster. It's not a watch inspired by Speedmasters. It is, although it is also that. It is a Speedmaster. It says Speedmaster on the dial. It is now part of the canon that is the Speedmaster story. And I think that is, you know, really wonderful and a bold move for them. You know, it's bold enough to make this. It's even more bold to make it properly part of the, you know, historical lineage of the Speedmaster. Across from that, you have MoonSwatch, which, you know, is kind of a funny name unto itself. Obviously, it's the Moonwatch is the Speedmaster. It's the MoonSwatch. This is a mission to Jupiter. There's all sorts of storytelling and branding going on, but in terms of the watch itself and the layout, it's all kind of balanced, even though none of the typefaces match. If you were really anal, that might bother you, but I don't know. This watch is just such a singular kind of funky thing. It gets a pass in those regards. Quickly looking at the hands, once again, true Speedmaster hands, but there's some really nice coloration here. The hour, minute, and active seconds hands are sort of a dark bronze color. I'm glad that they aren't black. I think this is a more subtle color here. Once again, a little bit unexpected. And then for the chronograph functions, you have this beautiful deep burnt orange color, which you'll see obviously in the center, and then the two top subdials. This is a reference to the Ultraman, which they've made very clear on their website. That's not just me assuming this. They've said like outright it is a reference to the Ultraman, you know, which is an iconic model that had an orange second hand rather than a white second hand, which was then revisited in the last few years as a limited edition. Generally speaking, I love it when the functions of the hands are kind of grouped by color. I think it just creates like some nice visual organization. So here, the fact that the time are bronze and the chronograph functions is orange is just something that, you know, thumbs up from me on that. Lastly, let's jump out to the tachometer here, as though it's sort of on the case, to me, you read it as part of the dial since it's an extension of sort of the top surface. They went very traditional Speedmaster here. In fact, super traditional in that it has the dot over 90, which once again, is something that they're celebrating in all their literature, but, you know, used to just be a kind of a call out for enthusiasts. You know, a dot over 90 bezel back from the 60s was more valuable than a dot next to the side of the 90. Once again, you have that little orange touch here with the tachometer text. I think, you know, once again, this is classic Speedmaster. It looks great. The one thing I'd note about it is how it is applied. So it's not like an engraved insert. It's obviously not a metal insert. It's all part of the plastic. And I feel like it's some sort of heat transfer or something like that, or a decal of some sort. It has a different sheen to it than the rest of the case and a slight different coloration, as I mentioned before. I am a little bit concerned about the longevity of that, but I guess only time will tell. As has been noted before, this is a quartz Speedmaster. Technically not the first, actually. I guess that there are sort of digital Speedmasters, but let's not go down that route right now. Powering this watch, as is indicated on the back, is an ETA with 4 joules, and it has V8 next to it on this back symbol here, next to the actual ETA shield, which is an indication of Swiss origin movement. As for the actual movement, it does not say anywhere in the literature what the literal caliber is. That said, the website Caliber Corner has done some digging into this, and you know, I think that they are right in what they have found, which that it is likely a G10.212 or based on that movement, and that is based on the subdial layout and, you know, the functionality of the watch and, you know, all these other things. It is Swatch, so, you know, they obviously, Swatch Group owns ETA, so it is logical that they'd be using those movements, and like I said, it just seems like it's that. Whether it is or it isn't, I'm not 100% sure. If we ever get confirmation on that, we'll put that below. In terms of how the movement works, It's a chronograph, so it works probably in ways that you are very familiar with. You start it and can pause it with the pusher up at 2 o'clock, but it does something really cool. So when you pause it, the 1/10 second hand will jump to like the closest, I guess, 1/10 of a second from at that moment. This is not new to quartz chronographs. In fact, the very first analog quartz chronograph by Seiko, the 7A28, also recorded 1/10 of a second, but it's extremely novel and fun, frankly, and something that, as somebody who's been using more mechanical chronographs in the last, decade, kind of a great feature. I mean, it's hard to time down to 1/10 of a second, and if you're using a sweep second hand, good luck counting the spots between the seconds. So a sweep second might be more aesthetically pleasing, but reading a 1/10 of a second subdial is way more practical in terms of actual readout. You could start it again, stop it, and reset it. So it works, the same way as a normal chronograph in that sense. But here's one more cool feature. You can start it, pause it with the reset button, and then it does essentially like a split time functionality. So you hit it again, and it jumps forward to account for the elapsed time. If this had 2 hands on it, it'd be called a retropont, and retropont actually means to catch up. The 2 hands would catch up, but here it still does catch up to where it goes. So it's essentially doing split timing, just without the second hand. Once again, a really great feature to have. Not uncommon to quartz chronographs, but it is uncommon to mechanical chronographs. So just a great value add here. When you first pop open the packaging for the Speedmaster Moonswatch, as I like to call it, you'll find the watch mounted to this fantastic looking Velcro strap. Now, if you're familiar with the Speedmaster, this strap is based on the kind of NASA flight suit Velcro strap, and Omega makes these for the Speedmaster also. Blake Bettner actually reviewed the Omega branded one. It's a $190 strap, so that's almost the price of this entire watch. Yet they recreated it in, frankly, really great detail for a $260 Speedmaster Moonswatch. It looks absolutely fantastic in my opinion, and when you open up the packaging for storytelling, I mean, it's exactly what you want to see. They're playing into that Speedmaster angle, they're playing into the history of it, and the branding on this thing is really exciting. I mean, it's almost dominant Omega once again, because this is how it's set up with this small section below 6, so Omega's facing you just directly. Swatch is then up at 12, and of course you have Speedmaster along the bottom of the band with the actual watch that you have here, so this Mission to Jupiter. So there's actually different colors for each of the watches. Once again, here is that Mission to Mars we have with the white strap with some red text on it, very flashy. It even has a matching bioceramic loop. It looks great. It does not wear very well. So unfortunately, when you first put on the watch, you're probably going to find this not to be the most pleasant experience. I certainly didn't. The watch is extremely light, so you'll find if you're trying to put it on and loop through, it's going to fall off. It doesn't really have enough heft to hold, and the Velcro itself is a very stiff synthetic feeling material, so it doesn't have the flexibility to kind of come around and do that. As you can see here, it doesn't even really want to flex at all. So you have to kind of pre-start it, put your hand through, and close it. Once it's on, it's nice and secure. It just doesn't feel very great. It's very stiff. It's just not a material that really feels like it's meant to be worn. It looks the part, like I said, but it just isn't very comfortable. And to be honest, when I first put it on, it sort of took away from the feeling of the watch as a whole. I was concerned, honestly, made it feel a little cheap. The lightness of it, the stiffness of this, it just didn't have sort of like a nice feeling at first. Great storytelling once again, and I think that they did it's kind of an incredible thing that they set out to do. They probably didn't need to do this. It could have been a softer plastic strap of some kind, a typical Swatch strap, for example, folds just fine around the wrist. I just think that the comfort aspect here was not quite executed well. Luckily, it's a 20mm spring bar, so you can swap out this strap very easily, and like other Speedmasters, I have found that it is a total strap monster. Once I removed the accompanying strap and put it on some of my own straps, the watch just sort of came together and frankly felt totally different, and I began to appreciate it a lot more. So here you have a muted sort of crown and buckle Tundra Matte Supreme strap. This is just a strap I really enjoy. It's very soft, and it kind of goes very nicely with the muted earth tones of this watch. Once I put it on another strap, I was able to sort of begin to appreciate the fit and feel and wearing of the watch, because it's just much more comfortable on something else. And then, yeah, what you have is a khaki colored Speedmaster, the Mission to Jupiter. This is, to me, just exceptionally cool. I love the way Speedmasters wear. I've owned several Speedmasters and unfortunately have sold them all except for a reduced model. And I always ache to have a 42mm Speedmaster in my collection. Would I like to also own the steel one? Yes. And I don't think this takes away from that at all. I think it's just an adjunct to that and kind of a new and fun way to appreciate that case design. Like I said, I personally love khaki colors. I love khaki and black, and I have several watches that are sort of in this color combination at this point, and I'm not going to slow down. I love them, and I would like to get more, and the fact that I now have something that has a twisted lug Speedmaster case that is a Speedmaster in that color is fantastic. And then the watch itself is very comfortable. I've been wearing it quite a lot. I wore it through our wind-up watch fair San Francisco. I wore it often. I wore it during setup days and everything, and it's an extremely comfortable watch. It's very nice to wear, fits well on my 7-inch wrist, and yeah, I think it just looks absolutely fantastic. And because of the unique coloration, you can actually play up and down different aspects of it in different ways. Here's a rust color strap. It really makes those hands pop. It sort of gives a different feel to it, less muted, more outdoorsy. This has been a really nice combination. And of course, if you don't like nylon or don't want to wear nylon, it's just warm out, so I've been wearing it on that. Leather is always a great option. This is a black rally strap, muted black. Obviously, black and khaki goes extremely well together. The combinations are endless, and that's part of the fun of this watch. The other colors, I think you'd be able to play off of in all different sorts of ways. To wrap things up, I think the Bioceramic Speedmaster MoonSwatch is just a truly fantastic new watch, an unexpected addition to the world of Speedmasters, one that opens it up to a tremendous new audience, and frankly, it's just a ton of fun. Whether you're a Speedmaster collector, you have several, if you've owned them before, if you never owned one but want to own one, if you have an itch for one, this is a fantastic way to get into them. It's a fantastic way to build off an existing collection, and they're just so much fun. I don't know what else to say about it. One thing we haven't really touched on, though, is the price point. And so these are $260. I've seen some quibbling over that. People think it's too expensive. I don't know. Let's put this into perspective for a second. That's 4.33% of the current going rate for a steel Speedmaster. That's like less than the tax you would pay on it in New York City. It's on the higher end for a Swatch, but it is within Swatch's catalog. There are watches that go up to like $270. It's a complicated construction, and it's got some pretty unique branding, as we've kind of gone over. It doesn't seem like an unfair price to me at all. Paying more for it, however, is a totally different equation, and one that kind of is up to you, what you feel like you're willing to pay for if you want to, frankly, not wait and get one now. I was able to purchase this one for around 2x MSRP. I wouldn't have done that had I not wanted to review it. I think at $260, it's a perfect deal. At double that, I just know I overpaid for it, kind of a thing. I don't necessarily think these are watches that are going to hold a high value versus just be, available for their MSRP once the stock sort of ticks up. So it's really, just a matter of timing and convenience if you're willing to pay for that. I think there's been some stories out there of them going for a ton of money. Once again, I don't think it's necessarily worth that, but that is, the call of the individual. For $260, this is a hell of a fun watch. Great looking watch, and a watch, frankly, I'm excited to potentially have more versions of in the near future. For my full written thoughts on the Omega X Swatch Bioceramic MoonSwatch Speedmaster Mission to Jupiter, please head to wornandwound.com.